it's probably safe to say that most Americans don't know who this guy is. And before I let the cat out of the bag, do you know who this guy is? Let me give you a couple hints. He's one of America's foremost propagandists. A propagandist is a public relations representative. Public relations is a position that has everything to do with hiding facts and outright lying to the public on a massive scale. So who exactly is he? What did he lie about? And what long-range, long-lasting, detrimental, horrific effects did and do his policies have on the lives of hundreds of millions of past, present, and future Americans? The guy's name is Harry Jacob Anslinger. Harry was one of the premier racists in the early 1920s and 30s, as well as one of the greatest enemies of the American people. Anslinger was a United States government official who served as the first commissioner of the U.S. Treasury Department's Federal Bureau of Narcotics during the presidencies of Herbert Hoover, Franklin D. Roosevelt, Harry S. Truman, Dwight D. Eisenhower, and John F. Kennedy. He was a staunch supporter of prohibition and of the criminalization of all drugs and spearheaded anti-drug policy campaigns. Anslinger has been rightly characterized as an early proponent of the war on drugs, as he zealously advocated for and pursued harsh drug penalties, in particular regarding marijuana. As a propagandist for the war on drugs, he focused on demonizing racial and immigrant groups. He targeted jazz musicians, including singer Billie Holiday. Anslinger held office as commissioner for an unprecedented 32 years until 1962. He then held office for 2 years as U.S. representative to the United Nations Narcotics Commission. The responsibilities once held by Anslinger are now largely under the jurisdiction of the U.S. Office of National Drug Control Policy, and the agency he ran was a predecessor of today's DEA. The Bureau first prepared a legislative plan to seek a new law from Congress that would place marijuana and its distribution directly under federal control. Second, Anslinger ran a campaign against marijuana on the radio and at major forums. His view was clear, ideological, and judgmental. Quote, "By the tons it is coming into this country, the deadly, dreadful poison that racks and tears not only the body, but the very heart and soul of every human being who once becomes a slave to it in any of its cruel and devastating forms. Marijuana is a shortcut to the insane asylum. Smoke marijuana cigarettes for a month, and what was once your brain will be nothing but a storehouse of horrid specters. Hashish makes a murderer who kills for the love of killing out of the mildest mannered man who ever laughed at the idea that any habit could ever get him." End quote. And by using mass media as his forum and receiving support from the likes of yellow journalism publisher William Randolph Hearst, Anslinger propelled the anti-marijuana sentiment from state level to a national movement. He used what he called his Gore files, which was a collection of quotes from police reports, to graphically depict offenses caused by drug users. They were written in the terse and concise language of a police report. Anslinger's clear bias against cannabis and some of his Gore files were referenced in the ridiculous 1937 anti-weed propaganda film Reefer Madness. At the beginning of the film, viewers read, "The motion picture you're about to witness may startle you. It would not have been possible otherwise to sufficiently emphasize the frightful toll of the new drug menace which is destroying the youth of America in alarmingly increasing numbers. Marijuana is that drug, a violent narcotic, an unspeakable scourge, the real public enemy number one." Think Nixon and the drug war in 1971.
America's public enemy number one in the United States is drug abuse. In order to fight and defeat this enemy, it is necessary to wage a new all-out offensive.
Its first effect is sudden, violent, uncontrollable laughter. Then comes dangerous hallucinations. Space expands. Time slows down, almost stands still. Fixed ideas come next, conjuring up monstrous extravagances, followed by emotional disturbances, the total inability to direct thoughts, the loss of all power to resist physical emotions, leading finally to acts of shocking violence, ending often in incurable insanity. In picturing its soul-destroying effects, no attempt was made to equivocate. The scenes and incidents, while fictionalized for the purpose of this story, are based upon actual research into the results of marijuana addiction. If their stark reality will make you think, will make you aware that something must be done to wipe out this ghastly menace, then the picture will not have failed in its purpose, because the dread marijuana may be reaching forth next for your son or daughter, or yours, or yours. Nearly everything they said about marijuana in this video was dead wrong. I mean, ask yourself, when was the last time you saw a volatile, dangerous pothead involved in shocking acts of violence? About the only thing people want to attack when they're high is a bag of Doritos and maybe a bowl of French onion dip. And real quick, I just want to point out 4 of the many ridiculous quotes that came out of Anslinger. Number 1, he said marijuana is the most violence-causing drug in the history of mankind. Number 2, Reefer makes darkies think they're as good as white men. Yeah, believe it or not, he actually said that. Actually, he wrote that. There are 100,000 total marijuana smokers in the U.S., and most are Negroes, Hispanics, Filipinos, and entertainers. Their satanic music, jazz, and swing result from marijuana usage. This marijuana causes white women to seek sexual relations with Negroes, he said, entertainers, and any others. And the last quote of many of the stupid quotes coming out of this guy, you smoke a joint and you're likely to kill your brother. And as fate and irony would have it, in his later years, Anslinger suffered a serious mental breakdown characterized by intense paranoia and irrational thoughts, like believing that addiction was contagious and addicts had to be quarantined, or talking about secret plots throughout the world. He was eventually hospitalized because of this mental breakdown. By 1973, Anslinger was completely blind, had a debilitatingly enlarged prostate gland, and suffered from angina. And here's another layer of irony. All of his life, he claimed to be fighting the scourge of drug addiction, but before he died, Anslinger was being treated with regular doses of morphine, which had been prescribed to him for his angina. By many accounts, this man who promoted the drug war and pushed for prohibition was addicted to drugs. To this day, the effective propaganda campaigns of Harry Anslinger live on, and people actually still believe what he wrote. On the heels of this propaganda, the prison industrial complex has grown to monstrous proportions. The law enforcement army in America justifies its very existence to stamping out the unwinnable, expensive, and deadly war on drugs. And American freedoms are still being stripped from peaceful people who just want to be left alone to do with their bodies as they please. I've never heard of anybody harmed by marijuana, but I've seen plenty of people harmed by the police enforcing the politicians' marijuana and other drug laws. If you enjoyed this video, maybe you'll enjoy some of my others. Check out my playlist and some of the popular videos you may have missed. Also, help me overcome the censorship algorithms by leaving your thoughts in the comments section below. If you want to support the channel further, grab a hard-hitting conversation starting design you can get from the store. You can put it on a shirt, hoodie, mug, cell phone case, whatever you want, and I will see you in the next video.